Never want to miss one of my videos? Then make bloody sure you click the notification bell. Yeah. Grand Theft Auto 5 is the most expensive video game ever produced, and one of the best-selling games of all time. The 65 million sales dwarfed competition from the likes of Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed and Pokemon. No blockbuster gaming series gets the same level of mainstream media attention any louder than that of GTA. Arguably the most controversial series in the entire history of gaming. Grand Theft Auto's success and sales levels grow with each installment published. The release of new GTA games these days is amongst the most exciting events in AAA gaming. This bloody series literally prints money. But what else would you expect really from a franchise that came straight out of Great Britain? Yeah. As you probably know, this foul-mouthed franchise was conceived in the UK, so I thought a little video about GTA's early history would be a great follow-up to last week's video about how the British saved Nintendo. Previously we looked at Rare's microcomputing roots as Ultimate Play the Game on the ZX Spectrum. Today is time to go back and look at GTA's British roots. Just to make you aware, I am not going through the franchise's entire history. My friend Daniel Ibbotson of Slope's Game Room has already got that covered. Dan produced an epic 1 hour long retrospective on the series, covering the first entry right through to Trevor Phillips' shenanigans in the modern day. My video shall be taking a completely different approach, taking an in-depth look at where the series began. The first game in the Grand Theft Auto series was developed by DMA Design Limited. This British company was based in Edinburgh, Scotland, and was formed in Dundee in 1984 by classmates David Jones, Russell Kay, Steve Hammond and Mike Daly. The company was originally founded as Acme Software, but later changed their name to DMA Design Limited. Then further they changed their name to Rockstar North. The Rockstar North crew originally met in 1984 when they would meet up in Dundee at the Kingsway Amateur Computer Club, which was held in Kingsway Technical College. This obviously all took place during the golden age of British microcomputing and bedroom coding, which I discussed in the previous video. This era successfully produced a large number of individuals who were just as interested in making games as they were simply playing them. At this club, most of these young gents began their coding journey by gaining experience using ZX Spectrums and Commodore 64s. Like the majority of other Brits at the time, I suppose. Out of the future Rockstar crew though, Dave Jones used an Amiga 1000 instead, which he managed to purchase using money from a redundancy package he had recently received. Another interesting factoid is that Mike Daly began coding at this club at the tender age of just 14, after being persuaded to go by a friend from school. At the time he knew little about coding, but was simply told to bring his computer and have a good time. Little did he know of how much of an impact he would have on the gaming world in the years to come. Whilst attending the club, members of the group developed a number of games, including Zone Trooper, which was released on the ZX Spectrum. This game was released at the bargain bucket price of just £1.99. Try finding an NES game over that period for that price. Carrying on through those early years, DMA Design ended up being backed by the publisher Psygnosis, who were primarily focusing on Amiga, Atari ST and Commodore 64 games. During this time, DMA successfully created successful shooters such as Menace and Blood Money. These games received mostly positive reviews from critics upon release and were praised for their gameplay, graphical design and sound. In the mid-1980s, the Amiga and ST offered visually some of the most stunning looking games of its time. By the dawn of the 90s, DMA were commissioned by Psygnosis to port Shadow of the Beast to the TurboGrafx-16 and Commodore 64. However, DMA's real breakthrough would come in 1991, when they released Lemmings. Lemmings was DMA's first true international success, managing to sell a staggering 15 million copies. Not bad for a bunch of nerds who started at a local computer club really, eh? By the time 1993 came around, Psygnosis themselves got acquired by Japanese company Sony. And if you know your gaming history, we all know what happened with that one. However, I am sure we can all look at how the British saved the PlayStation in a future video on this channel. Yeah. So, this may leave you wondering that with Psygnosis now acquired by Sony, where exactly did this leave DMA? Well, they started working with a little Japanese company of their own, a small company known as Nintendo. In 1994, DMA released Uni-Rally on the Super Nintendo, which impressed Nintendo enough to allow DMA to start working on a game for their upcoming Nintendo 64 platform. This new deal allowed DMA to create Body Harvest, an action-adventure third-person shooter originally intended to be a launch game for the platform in 1996. However, the game received numerous delays following Nintendo's various issues with the content. Miyamoto and co were so sickened by this game that Nintendo ultimately scrapped the game altogether. The game, however, was later published by Midway Games and Gremlin Interactive in September of 1998. Whilst all this Nintendo nonsense was all going on, fortunately DMA were not stupid enough to place all of their eggs into one conservative Nintendo basket. They were also working on another title which had started development on the Amiga, known as Race and Chase. One of the staff members deployed to work on Race and Chase was one of DMA Design's first employees, who was known as Paul Farley. Dave Jones took Farley on in 1989, and by 1994 he was working on a game engine that evolved into something called Race and Chase. The idea of this game was that you could play as both police and criminals. Dave loved the idea of creating a game where players could literally do whatever they wanted. All nuances of Grand Theft Auto, like being able to run pedestrians over, came from someone saying, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this?" The team chose to set Race and Chase in the USA, due to the fact that the United States likes to paint an image of their country being a land of opportunity, where you can do anything you want. To quote Paul Farley, he said, "We wanted to poke fun at US culture, and could do pretty much whatever we wanted, since from day one the plan was for it to be 18 rated. Sometimes we went too far. In one mission idea, which was later cut, you had to go around burning churches. You'd probably be arrested for putting that in the game now, even though it was all very tongue-in-cheek." Most of the team who developed GTA had apparently never even been to the United States, and this was before the days of big budgets, so there was no fact-finding trips to the US for DMA. They simply used a PC with internet access to research and talked about American television and movies they had watched over the weekend. They also drew influence from their favourite American childhood shows like Knight Rider and the A-Team. In terms of the game's visuals, they were chopped and changed around for various reasons. However, ultimately, the final visuals never ended up looking great. To quote Farley, GTA was the runt of the litter. It felt like something left over from the Commodore Amiga era. But from the very start, we thought we were making a great game. There was an arrogance. Walking into HMV and seeing it as #1 didn't surprise me. We just felt, well, this is what DMA does. But its longevity has been the big surprise. We never thought it would end up being the #1 entertainment franchise in the world. The 2.5D graphics in the game were apparently inspired by Clockwork Knight for the Sega Saturn. However, gameplay wise, the title was heavily inspired by a game known as Turbo Esprit. This video game, published by Durell Software in 1986, was available for the ZX Spectrum, Commodore 64 and the Amstrad CPC 464. The game was very detailed and advanced for its time, featuring car indicator lights, pedestrians, traffic lights and a view of the car's interior controls. It may also feature the earliest example of a free roaming city environment in a computer game. This game is cited to be the single most influential game in the development of Race and Chase, aka Grand Theft Auto. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, not only did the developers of Grand Theft Auto originally get their feet on the ladder in the golden age of British microcomputing, the whole franchise was inspired by a microcomputing game too, in the form of Turbo Esprit. Well, that is how the story goes anyway. Personally though, I think the developers have left out one absolutely huge influence from all of these stories. Let me introduce to you what I think has been the largest influence in the history of Grand Theft Auto.
Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat and his black and white cat. Early in the morning, just as day is dawning, he picks up all the post bags in his van. Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat and his black and white cat. All the birds are singing and the day is just beginning. Pat feels he's a really happy man. Everybody knows his bright red van. All his friends will smile as he waves to greet them. Maybe you can never be sure there'll be knock, ring, letters through your door. Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat and his black and white cat. All the birds are singing and the day is just beginning. Pat feels he's a really happy man.
If you are British like myself, you will be extremely familiar with Postman Pat. This postie is literally a household name, and the children's TV favourite has been entertaining kids up and down the country for over 30 years. Pat is even popular in a number of international markets too, and has recently starred in his own feature-length film. Whether you're British or not though, you are probably thinking, what the bloody hell does Postman Pat have to do with the Grand Theft Auto series? Well, you see, apart from Postman Pat being a popular TV program in the 1980s, he also had a fairly popular game on the ZX Spectrum as well. This is the Postman Pat computer game. You can clearly see, simply by looking at this game, how similar it is design-wise with that of the first Grand Theft Auto game. This 1988 title, which also saw publications on the Amstrad, Commodore and Amiga, is based on the Woodland animation television series of the same name. So, ladies and gentlemen, next time you are playing a GTA game, taking drugs and killing prostitutes, try to remember that none of this potentially may have been possible if it wasn't for Postman Bloody Pat, the original Trevor Phillips. Yeah. Thank you for watching today's video. I hope you learnt something new about Grand Theft Auto's British origins. Which franchise's origins do you think need talking about more in detail? Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and to check out some of the hundreds of other videos I've got uploaded to this channel. I have been producing in-depth content like this every week for nearly 2 years straight now. Shout outs to Suzuki Kabayashi, David Mountford, Andrew Bazansky, Agnes Garcia, Edward O'Reilly, Pizza Dawn, Retail Archaeology, Since Spacies, Victor Rain, Kevin Fahili and all of my other patrons. Thank you for all of your support. Yeah. If you want to be added to this prestigious list, then check out my Patreon page. Ta-ta and farewell.
Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat and his black and white cat. He picks up all the post bags in his van. Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat, and his black and white cat. All the birds are singing, and the day is just beginning. Pat feels he's a really happy man. Everybody knows his bright red van. All his friends will smile as he waves to greet them. Maybe you can never be sure there'll be knock, ring, letters through your door. Postman Pat, Postman Pat, Postman Pat, and his black and white cat.